The United States and Taiwan strengthening their relationship with a new trade deal aimed at lowering tariffs and increasing strategic cooperation. Tariffs on Taiwanese exports now capped at 15%. Taiwan set to reduce or eliminate all tariffs on U.S. goods. Taipei also setting to purchase $85 billion worth of U.S. energy aircraft and machinery over the next 4 years. Now this, as U.S. officials are urging Taipei to drastically increase defense spending, saying the threat from China, quote, has never been greater. But New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez having some, well, different thoughts about the state of Taiwan in Munich over the weekend. This made headlines. Watch this.
Would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
You know, I think that this is such a, you know, I think that this is a, this is, of course, a very long-standing policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point. And we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
All right, I want to bring in legal and political strategist and former World Bank and IFC outside counsel in Beijing, Katie Zacharia. Katie, good morning. Her answer was look, it was painful to listen to that, but you know, you have to wonder, does she not understand that we already have a strategic partnership in place with Taiwan, and that you would know that if you were a congresswoman?
It was almost a 30-second delay watching her try to answer that, Cheryl. And it was disturbing because if she's going to likely be, or putting her hat in the race for president, not understanding the trade situation that we already have existing with Taiwan, or the fact that President Trump is negotiating and Secretary Lutnick are negotiating these historic deals on semiconductor investment from Taiwan into the U.S., reducing tariffs and engaging Taiwan as a strategic trading partner, her answer is not really an answer. It's, I don't want to get involved in this conversation because I don't know enough about it. That's what I interpreted.
Yeah, especially because she was making the comments in Munich when the issue of national security, world security, you know, the threat that's coming from the axis of evil, if you will, which is Iran and China and Russia, was center stage at that conference over the weekend. I want to talk about a couple other things with you. The Pentagon moving quickly to withdraw multiple Chinese firms, including, get this, Alibaba and Baidu, from its list of companies tied to the CCP. This is reportedly minutes after being added to that list. Shares of these companies fell roughly 5% Friday after Beijing added to the list that same morning. So what do you make of this? I mean, what was behind the Trump administration's move to change course, you know, and delist these companies? This whole fight over these companies, these are two, you know, Alibaba at the time was the biggest IPO to hit the market that year. And a lot of American money is involved in this.
Well, you look back at what has basically happened over the course of history with China, looking really specifically at Hu Jintao to Xi Jinping and this military-civil fusion that they have engaged in. And so while Alibaba denies military links, understanding, having lived in China for 3 years, nothing happens in China that doesn't become military intelligence for the CCP. No business, especially one of the largest businesses out of China, which is Alibaba, is not going to be sharing, even by forced symbiosis, information with Chinese intelligence, with the CCP, and by virtue of that, the PLA, the People's Liberation Army. So the Pentagon may have accidentally put it on the list. It might be public, might not be, but to deny that Alibaba is not involved in some kind of forced information sharing with the CCP is to deny what actually China is doing with their military and civil fusion program that's been in existence for well over a decade.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. The Alibaba spokesperson comes out and says, we are not a Chinese military company. We're not part of any military civil fusion strategy, but Tencent was on this list. It was pretty shocking, all that, you know, that CATL, they're a battery maker, so it certainly sent shockwaves in the markets. I want to ask you about this. There's a new Wall Street Journal report revealing how North Korean cyber operatives are infiltrating global companies, U.S. companies, generating up to $800 million annually for the North Korean regime. They reportedly steal the identities and use American collaborators in laptop farms. So they appear that they're based in the U.S., that they're these remote IT workers, but they're not in the U.S., they are in North Korea. And the report says 90% of these workers' earnings are then seized by the North Korean government to fund the nuclear program. What do you make of this new report?
Well, that and a lot of them are doing this type of work out of China or Russia. So they're going to China or Russia from North Korea and then operating in those countries to the United States, because I'm not sure if they're able directly from North Korea to gather all that intel information given the firewall. And as the defector said, he started learning information about North Korea while he was in China using this tech program, using this tech platform, and then defected to South Korea. So North Korea is clearly exploiting the United States tech farm, using this tech farm and gaining momentum to then fuel its nuclear energy program, which China and Russia cooperating even partly. They know these people are in their countries. Again, having lived there, their visa regulatory system and immigration enforcement systems, especially in China, are top down. They know if you're in their country. And so surely China has some kind of cooperation with this. And this is intelligence that we need to gather on that for that information.
Yeah,
Cheryl.
no, it certainly was, you're right to go through China makes absolute sense, but that's even more indicative of what's on the table and how this meeting in April between Xi Jinping and President Trump is so important. Katie, before you go, I got to ask you this. You just received an exciting offer to serve in the Trump administration as spokesperson and Deputy Assistant Secretary for DHS Public Affairs. Congratulations, Katie.
Yes.
Tell us about this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Cheryl. I am deeply excited, having worked very hard to help elect President Trump in 2024 specifically, and it is an honor to serve the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, and an honor to serve the 45th and 47th President. I am so excited, having experienced what we need is rule of law on the ground in California for immigration. I cannot wait to begin working for DHS.
Well, promise you're going to come back as a guest. That's all I ask.
will. In that capacity.
I always love our conversations. Katie Zacharia, it's great to see you. Again, congrats. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll be right back, everybody. Got a lot more coming up.